Good afternoon, and thank you for joining me, whatever time of day it happens to be as you do so. For a number of years now, groups of us have met in our churches on Good Friday to reflect on aspects of the Passion story, using words and music and silence. An hour at the cross, we call it. This year will be different in a variety of ways, as well as the obvious that we cannot meet in the churches, but must do so online. Both copyright and technology place restrictions on the music I can play for you. But I presume that if you have the technology to watch me speaking on Facebook, you also have the technology to stream video on YouTube. And so I invite you to follow the link published in the Benefice Facebook page and to listen on your own device to sections of the video there. It is, of course, already in the public domain. You will find Stephen Isserlis, one of the world's foremost cellists, playing Bach's Suite No. 5 in C minor. When I planned this, I was going to play different movements from the suite at different points through the reflection, but I think that to do that online would throw the focus too much on the technology and distract from the narrative. So I invite you to listen to the prelude to the suite before we begin, and then the remaining movements at the end of the reflection. Of course, if you like, you can just listen to the Bach all the way through and not bother with me. That's your choice. The words on which I will reflect come both from Matthew's Gospel and Psalm 22, and these are also available to download as a booklet on the Facebook page, and more about the relationship between them a little later. The first passage I'm going to look at is the beginning of Mark's account of the crucifixion. But before that, I invite you to pause me and start the YouTube recording and listen to the prelude. You'll need to pause playback at about the 5 minutes 48 seconds mark, and then unpause me again on Facebook. When they came to a place called Golgotha, which means place of the skull, they offered him wine to drink mixed with gall. But when he tasted it, he would not drink it. And when they had crucified him, they divided his clothes among themselves by casting lots. Then they sat down there and kept watch over him. Over his head they put the charge against him, which read, "This is Jesus, the King of the Jews." Then 2 bandits were crucified with him, one on his right and one on his left. Those who passed by derided him, shaking their heads and saying, "You who would destroy the temple and build it in 3 days, save yourself. If you are the Son of God, come down from the cross." In the same way, the chief priests also, along with the scribes and elders, were mocking him, saying, "He saved others. He cannot save himself. He is the King of Israel. Let him come down from the cross now, and we'll believe in him. He trusts in God. Let God deliver him now if he wants to. For he said, 'I am God's son.'" The bandits who were crucified with him also taunted him in the same way. From noon on, darkness came over the whole land until 3 in the afternoon. And about 3 o'clock Jesus cried in a loud voice, "Eloi, Eloi, lema sabachthani." That is, my God, why have you forsaken me?" My God, why have you forsaken me? That cry of anguish and apparent desolation uttered by Jesus from the agony of the cross has rung down the ages. A few years back, some of us watched The Shack as one of our Lent films. You may recall Mac, its central character, throwing those words back at God in his anguish at the abduction and murder of his young daughter. "You even abandoned your own son." I wonder how many of us have experienced similar feelings of anguish and abandonment, similar feelings of anger against God at times during our lives. It can even seem at any time to challenge the whole basis of our faith. For if Jesus was truly abandoned by God on the cross, was the Passion anything more than a cruel and sad end to a noble but ultimately futile life? Well, you may be relieved, if not surprised, to hear that I don't believe so. Those exact words, my God, why have you forsaken me?" appear elsewhere in the Bible. When he cries in Hebrew, Eloi, Eloi, lema sabachthani, Jesus is quoting the first verse of a psalm, Psalm 22. So for me, the question we must ask is he simply crying out in despair? Or is he, in the extremity of crucifixion, letting that one verse stand for the whole meaning of the psalm? Crucifixion is a hideous death, but the thing which kills you is not the nails or the loss of blood. It is exhaustion, and above all asphyxiation. The effect of your whole weight hanging on your arms is virtually to paralyze the chest muscles. The only way to get air into your lungs is to raise yourself up on the nail through your feet, gasp for breath, and sink back down again, over and over, until eventually pain and exhaustion make that impossible. Interestingly, during the last week, I heard a COVID-19 survivor describe the symptoms as like slow asphyxiation. Breath becomes a priceless commodity, and speech a luxury. Jesus knows that psalm. So would those looking on. He knows that with almost prophetic clarity, its words written at least 600 years earlier encapsulate his present situation. So in that extremity, he chooses its first verse as what is in Matthew's Gospel his final utterance to humankind. There is so much more to say, but he lacks the breath to say it. That verse must say it all. He trusts that we will understand. That's what I want to try to do today, to read verses from throughout the psalm and to reflect on the message that Jesus intends to convey. Here is how Psalm 22 begins. My God, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from helping me, from the words of my groaning? Oh my God, I cry by day, but you do not answer, and by night, but find no rest. Yet you are holy, enthroned on the praises of Israel. In you our ancestors trusted. They trusted and you delivered them. To you they cried and were saved. In you they trusted and were not put to shame. Already we see something other than the utter desolation of the first line. I said a few moments ago that Jesus, in quoting just that line, trusts that we will understand the fuller meaning. Here, straight away, that human trust is expressed. In you our ancestors trusted. They trusted and you delivered them. Even in the anguish, there is something more than total desolation. God remains enthroned on the praises of Israel. Is that not a wonderful image? An image of hope set against the harsh view of Christ nailed to the rough wood of the cross. A very different enthronement. Our ancestors cried to God, just as Jesus does now, and they were saved.